Hey y'all. If anyone's here, I'm just working on zipping up the builds to upload them to GitHub for 2.0, and then we will go live. Sorry for being late again. This may take a couple minutes. I don't know why it's taking so long, but it is a it's a chunky build, so hopefully GitHub will accept it. If not, I will have to if not, I'll have to figure something out. I'm trying to do both. I may have to explain this again in a second, but you know what, we'll stay here for a minute. I don't have a 5.6 version ready yet because I realized too late I didn't have 5.6 downloaded, so I couldn't do the build for it. That'll have to be after the stream. So how's about that summer game showcase, huh? Pretty solid. Hang on, let me see if I can pull it up. It's me. I got some moves. It also dawned on me. I do need to make a, be right back. Away from monitor, away from computer, AFK, is that it? Whatever. Away from keyboard, yeah. One of those for I don't have one of those, so when I leave. But who I got would be in the chat and the watching. But I'll just go over for a second to show you. Nothing illicit? Good. This is the current status of me zipping up, and this is just 5.5. Yeah, so I need to at some point do a content is too big. I need to compress content. Oh, well, I don't need build output. That could be why it's taking so long. Crap. Yeah, I didn't need build output. Okay, 1 second. Okay, let's try that again. No build output, no intermediate, and we don't need those. Okay, that should go faster. Hopefully, I forget what GitHub's limit is, but I believe the built version should still be under it. Hopefully. Oh wow, yeah, I might have some performance hitches. I switched back to Windows 10 a little while ago from Windows 11. I'm still trying to get everything set back up, so there may be some performance issues. My camera might be working at too high resolution or something. I don't know. Performance issues on my model. Hopefully on the screen. Okay, that was it. So it zipped up. So that's 5.5. Now let's do 5.7, and I can upload those. No intermediate, but we do need binaries. Yes, it's kind of the whole point. So I suppose a bit of an explanation. Fab is taking forever to approve my stuff, as usual. The plugin isn't even approved yet. They keep sending new errors back to me. I think I've gotten a way where I can start using their plugin building process to replicate the errors and hopefully fix all of them in one batch. But that has been why it's been taking so long. So once I get that approved, I still need to approve the well, maybe I'll go over this because I'm going to take the first part of this and make it its own video, actually. So I'll explain in a second. Yeah, a lot less prepared than I was hoping to be, but oh well. Can I move all that stuff? No. Well, whatever. All right. Releases. Let's go. Let's put these up. And I don't have a changelog ready. Crap. How do I do a comparison? Okay, I'm just going to do it like this. Edit. Not edit alpha. I'm going to keep that. All right. Draft a new release. 2.0. 2.0. Full changelog. Yeah, okay, so we're going to do... Shoot, I haven't uploaded... Okay, let me do that. Let me upload... Let me actually upload... Frickin' frick. Pardon me. I gotta upload the actual new GitHub version as well, so you guys can have the source code. And boy, oh boy, is there a lot that has changed. Build 5.7, since that is going to be the working one. Let's start uploading the other versions. That's 5.7. 5.6 will need a rebuild. And there is 5.5. Both under 2 gigabytes, so we should be good. Alright. Oh wait, which am I on the dev branch? Because that'll be a problem. It's taking long. 15 minutes is taking way longer than I thought. Darn it! Make sure that's running in the background to take up less things. Alright, you know what? I think once these are ready, I am just going to... Yeah, I'm on the dev branch. Shoot. Okay. I'm just going to switch over to the main branch. I didn't want to bring changes on main. Dang it. Okay. All right, I'm just gonna publish what I got. I'm going to publish the GitHub the updates to the main source code, and then just release 5, or do a base release of 2.0, and I will add the changelog when I have 5.6 ready to upload. Hello, everyone. Good night. This is a mess. But then we'll get started in just a minute. This is, yeah. I'm running a little behind. Close that. What else can I close? Okay, frick me. I'm just going to leave that on this side. First public release of 2.0. I thought that... Okay, version 2.0.0. That's dumb, but... Oh, wait. I got it. I got it, maybe. Delete that. Copy that. My computer's chugging. I can hear it. Okay. 73%. 13 minutes of nothingness. Oh well. So how's about that Summer Game Fest? Once again. Honestly, if it weren't for FF7R, because I hate that game, and I am very salty about it. If it weren't for that, I'd say this was a nearly perfect showcase. It was pretty great. Well, maybe not nearly perfect, but it was a really, really good showcase this year, SGF. Excellent stuff. One of their best. Not one of it. Might be their best, actually. Unlike the Sony State of Play, which was pretty terrible. But yeah, SGF was very good. The mix was pretty good. I'm hoping we get some good stuff. Maybe some Persona at the Xbox, since it's been there the last few years. But we'll have to see. All right, get rid of that. Let's run through. I think I had a lot more changes than that, mate. Yeah, 4,000. That sounds more right. Okay. Okay, whatever. Publish release. There we go. 2.0 is out. Let me push the source code and updated to 2.0 source. All right, and we'll let that run. Close out those. Close out that. Move that there. Close that. Close that. And let's say draft restricted public. There we go. View page. Sweet. All right. We're almost there. Just like 1 minute, and we'll be doing this properly. Updates. Omega. first full version 2.0 is out now on GitHub. 5.5 and 5.7 currently, with 5.6 coming later today. And one more thing before I start. Publish. As we wait for Fab release for these, you can get the you can get the game templates on my itch.io. Game available now, with the others coming shortly. So one thing I like about itch.io, you can just publish stuff like right away. Obviously, there's a downside to that, is to their approval process, but I feel like most people who know me are going through my stuff rather than finding stuff on itch.io. So, pardon me. Okay. Publish. All right, then let's load these up for our actual show, for our actual announcement, which will be the first video we cut, and then we do the tutorials. All right, and let's get ready to go. Let me check my audio first on the video, making sure I sound all right. All right, let's get ready to go. Sup, gang? Well, it's finally time, and way ahead of schedule. Omega Game Framework 2.0 is now available in its first version on GitHub. Not yet on the Fab Marketplace, so that is coming soon. Things have been a little crunchy, so not all the details of the changelog and stuff are ready yet, and I don't have a 5.6 as of recording this, so that should be up later today. But you can go on to the Omega Game Framework's GitHub under releases, go to version 2.0.0, and there you have it. You have the 5.5 and 5.7 full engine builds of OGF 2.0, and you can get started using it right away. This is... what else do I want to say? Hello, Michelle Williams. Michael Michelle Williams? It's hard to tell, but hello, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm in the middle of recording for the individual videos now. This is going to be just the announcement of 2.0. So, for those of you who don't know, Omega Game Framework is a very extensive and robust, but pretty easy to use gameplay framework for Unreal Engine, including all sorts of features like abilities, attributes, quests, gameplay systems like modular gameplay systems, a zone manager, an easy save system, equipment, inventory, leveling, and so much more. And yes, it is available under MIT for completely free. 2.0 went through some pretty radical changes, breaking changes as well. So for those who are using earlier versions, you will probably need to do some updating of your code. But yeah, it's available now to download with the source code up in just a minute after this stream. And to coincide with this, I have some new templates coming as well. Right now, we have a basic game template, which will be completely free. It's a very simple third-person controller with a basic dialogue and interaction system, basic pause menu, the save system, which is actually the Omega's built-in save menu, but you can use it, you can copy it and modify it how you want. as well as a title screen. So kind of all the very basic stuff you need, as I believe I have a settings screen as well. Maybe I didn't upload it. But all the basic stuff you need to start making a game using Omega Game Framework. And very soon, I have new templates coming. I have templates for Boomer Shooter, for JRPG, turn-based JRPG, as well as for a 3D platformer. And these will be coming up very shortly. They will all be $20. Transition back. So I appreciate your all patience. Thank you for supporting me this far. Go out and grab it. Grab some templates if you feel so inclined. And yeah, look forward to more tutorials coming up shortly. All right. Hang on. I'm going to go get some water for my voice, and then I will be back, and we will start on the first tutorial. In fact, let's actually shut down first the rebuild, or the build version, and we will go ahead and yeah, let's fire up 5.7, because I'll do this on 5.7 to just because it's the one everyone will be familiar with, the latest one. So yeah, well, I'll wait till that loads, then I'll create the project, and then I'll go get my water. Hopefully my voice holds out long enough. Let's get the music back here. Nah, we'll give it a minute. Is Prismatica Dev still streaming? I think he is. Cool, working on physics stuff. Oh, I'm waiting. Nope, wrong one. Sorry, I was just looking at Prismatica Dev and kind of what he was working on. Oh, he clicked away, and I didn't pause. Resume. I'm shocked by like how much stuff he seems to do in like Blueprint fundamentally, but I guess I haven't followed him enough to know all his ins and outs of doing stuff. But Prismatica Dev, he's cool, especially if you like Unreal Engine physics and physics simulation on body and stuff. It's a lot of what he's been doing. Anyway, let's make our new project. Get out of here. Scalable. I'm gonna do a blank. Desktop scalable. We'll see. OGF tutorial. All right. Create that, and then while that's setting up, I'm gonna go get some more water. Be back in just a minute. A fan on. Gotta keep the doors shut during streaming, but that means the air conditioning can't get in here because this office is not well air conditioned. I've tried to solve some of that, but it hasn't worked out great so far. But oh well. Alright. Let me set up a couple things. Well, why not let you see what I'm working on before I actually get to the tutorial? So yeah, we're on here. Let me make sure things I don't need are turned off. Anti-aliasing is going to be FXAA. Global illumination, none. Let's turn off nanite as well, and RHI switch to DX11. Then we're gonna restart now. Oh no, my desktop is exposed. Do I have anything on here? Nah, everything's all right. I exposed that I use Atlas OS. Oh no, I use the performant version of Windows 10. Okay. Let's load up a basic map. Where's my cursor? There we go. Default map. Well. Make sure I have everything I need. It's not there. Rebuilds 5.7. Open plugins. Yeah. Wait, where did I put it? Oh, is it directly in here? Where am I? Okay. Let's make sure I'm actually using the same file pilot for both. And I think that's it. Good to go. All right. Let's get this numero uno tutorial started. Sup, gang? Welcome to the first in the tutorial series for Omega Game Framework, the gameplay framework for Unreal Engine. The world's best gameplay framework for Unreal Engine. Let me check OBS, actually, make sure everything's running okay. Appears to be. Sweet. Minimize, okay. Forgot to have the site open. So to get started using it, you'll need to go to the GitHub for Omega Game Framework, or potentially the Fab page when it's finally released there. You'll go under the latest releases, which in this case is 2.0, and just download for whichever Unreal version you're launching. And just download for whichever Unreal version you're using. In this case, I'm using 5.7, so we'll go with that one. And I have it downloaded right here, so I'm going to open it up, and all the contents for the plugins are right here. So what you'll do is you'll just go ahead and extract it. And there's our plugin. Now, to install it, there's a few different ways. You can put it in the engine, which I wouldn't say I totally recommend, but it can work under some circumstances. Commonly, a lot of people will just copy it and paste it. In this case, this is my project. They'll just copy and paste it right into their project's plugin folder. You can drag and do that, move it, paste it, whatever. That's a good way to do it. The way I like to handle plugins, so I can keep them actually all running from the same spot, is I will go into plugins and do plugin directories. So I'll do additional plugins, search for it there. And in this case, I will actually just go in and actually I want to get rid of that now that I don't need it. Continue. Yes. I don't need it. Get rid of it. Cancel. Okay, we'll cancel for now. No, I need to get rid of it because this is actually the fucking thing. All right, I messed up. Give me a second. I'll edit this all obviously out of the video, but there we go. And let's actually move this fella out here as well. Did that work? Okay. Then I'm going to find where my 5.7 plugin actually is. Copy and paste it in. And there I go. Now I have the plugin path set up. So whenever I make any changes to the plugin directly, it'll be applied to any project that references it this way. And you won't get the issue you have when putting it in the editor where it sometimes doesn't build. I may need to do these standing up. I may need to do these in shorts, actually, too, because I'm wearing pants right now, but I really shouldn't. It's getting hot. Uh-oh. It looks frozen. Please don't be frozen. Okay, we're good. 5.7, so it's going to take a while. Supposedly they're focusing on performance with 5.8 and 5.9. But, we'll see. We'll see. My trust in Epic is wonky. At best. We'll change it to using startup maps as well. Just opened. Output log. Okay. All right, now that we have the plugin installed, let's go ahead and do a couple of things with it. I'm going to make a simple map by pulling in an environment actor. This is an actor in an Omega Game Framework that has kind of all the common environmental components already built in. So skylight, directional light, fog atmosphere, clouds, post-processing, and audio for overall ambience if you want to use that. You also have some quick buttons here to actually change what type of sky you're using. So the atmosphere is obviously the most expensive one, default one. You can also hit this and quickly go to a skybox, which is actually much more performant. We do that. Let's add a plane. Make it super big. And let's look up. Let's make sure we have, in this case, plugin content enabled. Then let's look up Omega Block. And we will find, we'll say block world, and this will be our grid pattern we use for the world. Drop in a player start, where our player doth start. There we go. Sorry, my brain froze. And now, you have a pretty basic Unreal game. So to start testing out just Omega quickly, let's just go into world settings and go down here and we'll do GM Omega demo. If I just select that and hit play, it'll give it a second to compile. And we got shaders, but no input. That's interesting. Oh, I bet I know why. So we have some basic gameplay stuff going on. I don't have any input working, though. Let me quickly go and fix that. Now, if input and stuff isn't automatically working, you'll want to go into project settings under Omega settings. Let's go down to, where is it? Gameplay. First go into imported gameplay settings, and then you're going to want to add this. This is optional, but it gives a lot of default configuration for a bunch of different settings for Omega Game Framework. Stuff you can set up yourself, but this is kind of the default settings for a lot of them. You can also copy this, modify it. I'll go into this more at a later tutorial video, but this is a lot of presets for things like input. Because Omega Game Framework allows you to use the old input system, but it also includes a much simpler, more streamlined input system as well. So if I hit play now, there we have a third-person character controller with jumping. If we can hit escape, we can open a menu. It took a second to load in the actual widget, but let's go ahead and resume. I can do settings. I can go out, open the save menu, resume, jump. And you'll know down there we have input setup. Well, that's because I have... do I want to go into this now? No, I'll talk about platforms in a later video. But for you on stream here, we have a default platform as well as other platforms. If I open that up, this is actually where you set information for things like for platform-related stuff. Right now, just it's key info. So if I go to like Gamepad, which is the default one we're using, you can set up the icon for them. Things like that. All right. And that's the basics of installing Omega Game Framework. All right. That's tutorial 1. Oh, that's right. I meant to do another thing. So let me transition over. Where's Paint? I was going to use Paint to specify which tutorial I am on. Okay, what's the first one I wanted to do next? And of course, I got a little break time between each of these tutorials, so if anyone has any questions, anything they want to know, obviously free to ask. I welcome it. I encourage it. Okay, well, let me scroll my tutorial list. All right. Yeah, I think gameplay systems is the way I want to start. That's pretty foundational. That'll also cover the game mode as well. Is that as big as it gets? Seriously? No, that's better. 48, 36. That'll be goal. No, you fool. Why'd you do that? Gameplay systems. Okay, this is dumb, but I guess this is just how it has to be. Gameplay systems. Oh, is it because I need to zoom in? Nah. Okay. Yeah, this will work fine. Okay. And let me actually quickly brief this in my head how I want to do this. So we'll do game mode. All right, we'll just start and work it out and edit what we need to. So transition. So this is for gameplay systems. Long enough for the edit. Okay. Fair enough, Savage. Yeah, you can kind of follow along here. This is, again, what the idea of what I'm doing here is, if you've ever seen Prismatic the Dev, it's kind of like that, where I'm doing a lot of tutorials and then I will cut them up individually. But yeah, I can help kind of in between stuff. So, all right, gameplay systems. Let's do that. All right, welcome back to the tutorial for Omega Game Framework, the best gameplay framework for Unreal Engine. Today, we're covering gameplay systems. So gameplay systems are one of the most foundational aspects of Omega Game Framework. They are singleton actors that get spawned into your world to modularly run some sort of function and have a return event. So this is often where you will put things like your main exploration mode, your battle system, and any sort of like a game mode within a game mode is kind of the best way to think of them. And they can be layered on top of each other, and you can do all sorts of things with them. But this is kind of where you put the main functionality for a specific sort of game state. To demonstrate this, let's go in here, and actually I'll set up the main folder. I like to do omain, so it keeps it at the top all the time. We'll set up blueprints, and we'll do systems. We'll also get rid of our game mode demo. All right, so let's set up our first system just to test things out. Look up system, and then you have gameplay systems. Test. Let's load it up. Now, because this is an actor, you have all the functionality of an actor, namely adding components and receiving input easily. Let's go in here. Let's go to the event graph. We have a state for when it's activated and a state for when it is shut down. We can also feed in a context object and a flag, as well as a generic. Let me just look up meta. You have this generic metadata, which just has a bunch of stuff you can use, but we won't go too much into that right now. Make sure we are on. Let me also change the scalability settings to make sure we're not using more than we need. Where is it? Cascade. I'm still usually use 5.5 regularly, so I'm still kind of getting used to. Yeah, this should be it, right? Performance and scalability. Oh, there we go. I'm still getting used to the new controls in 5.7. But all right. I think to test this out, let's go ahead and do tick print string. Plug that in. Do that. Shorten this. And then we'll say when we're activated, we're going to delay, we'll say 2 seconds, and then shut down. This will, shut down our system and then run a shutdown process and then delete it. So if we have open up our basic game mode, we have to see nothing going on. It's because there's a few different ways you can activate game or gameplay systems. For first, let's make a game mode to go alongside this, just to demonstrate everything. Now, importantly, you're going to want to use Omega Game Mode because some pretty important functionality is tied to this. So when you're using a game mode with OGF, make sure to use the Omega Game Mode as your base. So we'll do GM main. Open that up. And then here we'll say, look up activate system. And you will have this function here, activate gameplay system. Now, there's a bug right now where it actually is showing more. Don't use this one. You want the one with the node outputs. But here you go. Then we'll just select our gameplay system. There's some built-in ones. We're not going to worry about those right now. Just do our system test. And then, and actually, to further demonstrate it, we'll say on shutdown, print string, I'm done. And then if we open this up, I have to set that as the game mode first, of course. If I set this up, and there you go. The system ran as expected, and that gives you a nice asynchronous gameplay state. Now, this is the most common way. You will probably be using a gameplay system, so you can put all your functionality wrapped in one system. And, of course, because it's deleted, it means anything you use in this system, like any components and whatever, any actor instances will also get cleared out. So that's very useful for creating like a contained game state. Now, this is the most common way you'll probably use this as this asynchronous node. There's a couple other ways to use it, though, such as set system active. which lets you toggle a system as active or not. And here we have that context and flag and the metadata that we can feed in. Getting through here. Actually, looks like that needs to be added here as well. So you can do the same thing here. Just activate the system. It won't have any of the outputs, but there's an option as well. You can say system active list, which you can activate actually a whole list of gameplay systems as well. Let me get a drink. But there is actually another way to but there's also another way you can use gameplay systems, which is in your game mode, and that's for setting up automatic systems. So systems that will automatically be activated at different points during your game state. So if we go in here, and for 5-7, we'll have to scroll down, but under Omega Systems, we have a few different options. So we have preload, load, postload, and persistent. A preload system is run as soon as your game mode is started. This is useful for any system that you want to automatically activate and do a bunch of functionality for. But it's automatically activated at the start. Then we have a load system. Now you only get one of these. This is essentially after your game mode has started. We will run a post-load system, we will run a load system. And here I actually have a built-in load system that I commonly use, which has some functionality I'll quickly show you. This is built into the Omega game framework. But basically it has some functionality for awaiting certain things to be loaded, like making sure if your game is async loading anything, if it's loading any level instances, sort of prevent any moving forward into the main gameplay state until we finished doing any core loading of assets and level streaming and stuff. That's the default one you can use. It's pretty easy. It's all set up for you. You can create your own though. And anyway, once the load state is finished, then we will activate any post-load states. So anything we're wanting to run after the load state is finished. So pretty easy. Preload. So visually a demonstration would be set system active. A visual demonstration would be something like this. Then begin play. Then we do preload activation, then load system, and then post-load activation. Now, lastly, though, we have something called persistent systems. And these will be gameplay systems that will constantly be attempted to be activated if they are not already. And that's where on specifically this tick. So you have persistent system frequency. This means every this amount of seconds, we will attempt to activate every system in this list. Now, what's the use of this? Well, typically, let me go back to our main system mode. The way I use this is I use this for my actual main gameplay state. So if I go into gameplay systems, system, and do you can call it gameplay. I like to call it exploration. That's always my main system state. So we'll pull this up. This will be our main system, our state of control. And if we go into here, and actually let's go and make sure print string active explore. Then if I put that in here, system exploration, then, oops, sorry. Make sure I did that right. Yep. I did. See, then it is activated on, oops, sorry. There, it's automatically activated. Now, let me go and check load at first. I should probably have a flag for, cut this part out. Okay, here's what I'll do. I'll put this. Okay. Just to make it easier to find what I won't worry about it. I just want to double check something. Yeah, block system. Oh, that's actually, I can just explain it there. Now you'll notice when I activate this exploration system, it's actually running during my load state, and I don't want that. So the way you can prevent that is using system tags. So if you go into here, under Omega, you have the tags right here. These are for a number of things. If you've ever used the game playability system, slightly similar to that. You can give tags to the system, and then you can set block tags and blocked on system tags. What does this mean? Well, kind of as it says, the tags here will block any system, will deactivate and block any systems based on their tags up here. And this is similarly, only it says this system cannot be activated if any systems with these tags are active. There's also global events, but we won't go into those right now. So to prevent this exploration system from running while the game is loading, so we don't have control while we're actually in a closed, while the screen is black and we're actually loading in. Under my default load system, I'll just use as an example, I have here block system tags exploration. So let's go up and do exploration. So we're going to give ourselves that tag. These are some of the tags that are built in. No, not sub-explore, exploration. So now, if I activate this, you see it doesn't activate until load is done. And that's useful for things like battle systems or dialogue, where you can set those up to block exploration system until it's active, but you don't need to keep always reminding it to, hey, reactivate the exploration system whenever dialogue or combat or whatever is finished. Because it knows as long as nothing is blocking it, like one of the systems, then it should be active, and it'll automatically activate itself. And it makes handling that state management much, much easier. I'm trying to think if I want to go over anything. Let me pull this back up. I'm trying to think if I want to go over anything else for gameplay systems specifically. Because there's a lot of tiny things all over the place, but I need to work on managing my voice. There's a lot of tiny things all over the place, but it's hard to wrap them all up and handle them. So let me think. So I'm going to cover HUD layers later on, and that's the HUDs that you can add to your screen, and those can be activated from the game system. But I'm trying to figure if I want to activate those now. I guess I can finish the exploration system and kind of show that, and that'll be kind of the demonstration. So let's go ahead and finish out this exploration system. First, I'm going to add in, let's say, Omega character. We'll do that. Omega character. And then, yeah, let's go back to exploration. Reminder of something. I feel like this is better handled when I go over the new input system, actually. Yeah. Well, I got one more thing I guess I can go over. Notifies. Also, another useful feature are system notifies. So you can output a notify with a context as well. And when using this right here, that'll output this node right here. So you can output, certain events and a context of those events without actually fully shutting the system down. And that is the basics of gameplay systems in Omega Game Framework. My voice is killing me. That was the first piece. I think I want to keep these relatively short tutorials so people can digest them. So there's that. I think that covers most of it too. It understands this is an activation state that can be blocked as well. Or a singleton game state. All right, let me decide what's next on the list. And of course, we're in break now, so questions and anything. Installing and gameplay systems are done. So Game Manager is next. Okay. But the game manager is kind of under construction still. I guess this will be a really short one. I think I'm going to kind of combine the game manager into talking about gameplay modules. All right, so on to gameplay modules it is. Covering gameplay modules now. Right. Welcome back to the tutorial series for Omega Game Framework, the best gameplay framework for Unreal Engine. Today we're going to talk about gameplay modules. Now, gameplay modules are very similar to gameplay systems in a lot of ways. Gameplay systems from our... No, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to do it that way. Now, gameplay modules are somewhat similar to gameplay systems, like we covered in our last tutorial. But rather than being an actor bound to the world with an activation state, they're actually game instance level. So you can kind of think, if you're familiar with subsystems in Unreal, gameplay systems are sort of like a world level subsystem, while gameplay modules are like a game instance level subsystem. And this allows you to attach game-wide functionality to your project and potentially reuse them across other projects. So let me give you an example. Let's look up, let's create modules and do gameplay module. So we'll do gmod my module. All right. Now it's very minimalist. There's not much to it, but you do have a lot of functions you can bind into. So like when certain stuff happens to an actor, though this does have to be an actor that is derived from one of the Omega Game Framework base actor classes. But you have a lot of stuff here for when game files are started and saved, for when systems are activated, combatants are damaged, gameplay systems, global events. But the main ones, a lot of this is stuff we'll go over later. The main ones are on initialized and shut down. So this will run functionality when the game starts and when the game finishes. Let's add some basic things like, let's say print valk, and we'll give it a number. We'll say 42. Print string, and with this activated, we'll print string with that at, we'll say orange color. Now, and this has, of course, and you can access things like the game instance and all that stuff from here as well. So you can do all sorts of passive, modifications and systems on your game. Now, in order to activate a gameplay module, these are game wide, so they need to place. So you don't activate them from like the game mode. Instead, what you'll want to do is go into Omega settings. And you'll want to find right here where it says Game Manager. Now, Game Manager is kind of like a game instance, but a little bit different because it has editor functionality as well. I'm not going to go a lot into it now because it's slightly still under construction. It has the basics it needs, but it's got a lot of complex functionality to it. That's more when we do more advanced stuff we'll talk about. But you only have one of these, so let's go over here and do my game manager. Save it here, and then it opened up, and here you have some similar functionality as to the game module. But what we're concerned about right now is going into here with game modules and gameplay modules at the top here and add in my module. There we go, and there we can see our value. And what's cool about this is you can actually create this module, but then like put it in a plugin or somewhere else and reuse it across different projects, and then configure its specific functionality in the game manager. So let's go ahead, now that we have this set up, and play our game. And there you do, we have 42 printed out. Now let's say we put this, we had created our main gameplay framework that we wanted to use, or our like core systems we wanted to use across multiple games, and they all use this same module. So I have the value here. You can set up the module, and then for your specific game manager, you can put it in, and then just change its value. 68 there, and boom, 68. What's also neat is how you access game modules. So if I go into, let's say, our it's a game mode. Get game module. So you can get the game module, and you can also do try get game module, which is similar. It just has an output for whether or not you can get that module. So we can do that and get our value right here and use it for whatever we want. And it's accessible across the entire game because it's a game-wide system. But what's neat is that as a failsafe, one, if we're either not using this module or if we want to use it but we don't want to change any of the defaults or something, you can actually just do fallback to default. And it'll, rather than getting whichever one, basically it says fallback to default is if we cannot actually get an active module of this type from the game manager, we'll just get the default one and get its default values. And so it'll always ensure you have something accessible here, and you'll never have an invalid null, a null object with a crash. And yeah, that's the basics of using gameplay modules in Omega Game Framework. That went faster. I think I covered everything I need to there. That's kind of the main purpose of it. I do realize I forgot to go over system configuration. But I'll go over that for you on stream, and maybe I'll append it in. If I remember. Which is a terrible thing to say, but whatever. So for you on stream, I talked about gameplay systems. You add those in here, like normal. But if you want to change, I'll act like I'm going to do it. So we've gone over how to use gameplay systems here. But say you wanted to keep using a system on a different game mode, but change some of its parameters. Well, what you can do is you can go in System Config, then select which game mode you're wanting to configure, in this case, Exploration, and there you can actually change some of the variables around it. So like if I go back to, close these out. So if I go back to my exploration system and say, we won't implement this, but let's say I had a variable called can jump, and normally I can jump, but I wanted a gameplay, I created a new game mode where I don't want you to be able to jump. Then I'll just turn it off. And whenever I create an instance of system exploration, it means it'll configure that as being off. So that's a way you can kind of fine-tune how systems work under certain circumstances. Okay, back. What's next? Save and load. I think that's one of the ones I did not do first time around, so that's going to be useful. I'll do save and load, then I'm going to take a short break, maybe stretch my legs, get something tiny to eat, help my throat out, and then I will be back to do more, because I want to get as many of the basics as I can done today. All right, let me make sure I've cleared out everything. Oh, I forgot to add a certain function. Oh, okay, I'll do that later. Before we start, I'm actually going to add a second maps levels test. Test map 1 and test map 2. Test map 2, I will give a different time of day in order to specify it's actually different. Where's fog? Oops. Gonna add a couple more things to the map to specify. Kind of positionality of where kind of things are. Why is this so bright? Yeah, I'm gonna make a first person controller. It'll make things easier if I have a first person controller, I think. Systems. Mega character. A player FPS. We'll move his camera to 90 up here and mesh hidden in game. But full functionality, of course. Use pawn control rotation. I'm going to switch over to using the other game exploration system for now too, so that I don't create. I'll copy it over actually, so I actually do have it. That's really all I need, I think. Yeah. Oh wow, that's loud footsteps. I don't know if you guys heard that. I should actually have desktop audio on. I'll just keep it quieter because footsteps are kind of loud. Almost ready. Okay. Copy. Go on to the other level. Paste them in. Let's set up a basic zone transition. There we go. Local. Transit to level. Level. There we go. So make sure this actually works. Good. Even though footsteps are still so loud. But okay. Now let's actually finish out testing this just to make sure the full thing works. Any key, I don't want to do anything. Key none. Print string. Save So now if I do that, and then do play. All right, I think it's working. Let's do it. All right, we're going to be covering saving and loading now. Sup, welcome back to the tutorial series for Omega Game Framework, the best gameplay framework for Unreal Engine. Today we're going to be covering basics of saving and loading your game. Now, OGF has a very robust save system, but it's also very easy to use, easy to set variables and save those variables to save games and load games, and even save and load games to non-traditional paths. So to kind of show the basics of it, I've set up 2 levels here. We have level 1 and level 2. And to show kind of the built-in functionality, we're going to just walk from one to the other, save the game, and then reload it. So what we're going to do first, though, is I'm going to pull up System, Exploration, or Exploration Mode. Make sure you have auto-receive input turned on here so you can actually do input on this. Then I have a hyphen and an equals set up just for the handling the saving and loading. Let's get a save subsystem and do save game to slot. We'll save to slot 0. Then we're going to do load game from slot. Now this is just loading it into memory. In order to actually start using this game, we will need to do start game. And in this case, we're going to do load save level. Why is this? Well, Omega Game Framework always has 2 save files active. If I go in here, I can show you the active save data and the global save data. Now the way it works is that whenever you start up the game, you'll have both of these activated, but they're a little different in that an active save data is instanced. I'm not to put this. This is like the save data for your current game that you are running. Whenever you start a new game or load a previous game, you'll get a new save data, and it'll be cleared out whenever you close the game. So yeah, things like player levels or health or items collected, whatever, those will all go inside here. They'll be saved with a file and cleared out whenever you start a new or load a new game or load a previous game. The global save data is created the first time you boot up your game, and then that same file is reloaded every time thereafter. So this allows you to save stuff, basically save entire user data, things like New Game Plus or total collected items that you could view in like an extras menu or things like that. And that's the 2 differences between the 2 of these. So global data will all automatically be created. For an active game, you'll actually need to do create new game here and then run start game. I believe this actually has a standalone function as well. Yeah, save, you can do save create new game and then start that game. You can also load its save level, which we're going to do right now and demonstrate. So we're going to do slot 0, load from slot 0, and start that game. So I do this. We're going to walk into here. Now this is a level transition. I'll go over these in a different tutorial, but we'll walk up, let's say right about here. This is pretty far away from the starting point. And then I'm going to hit minus to save the game. Let's close out of this. If I start up again, hit play, and hit that, we'll load up our save game in the same spot we were. I think the transform is a little messed up just because the player controller I'm using, but the rotation. But we are spawning in the exact same, because of the camera controller, right? But we are spawning actually in the exact same location. And if I set up the camera controller right, it'll keep the rotation as well. So yeah, we're loading into our exact location. And there's other methods for saving data that I might go over for individual actors as well. But yeah, that's the basics of creating and loading a save game. Now, water. Under Omega settings, you have some configuration values for. Under Omega settings, you have some configuration values for the save system. For example, what is the prefix of a save game? What's the prefix or the name of a global save? You can also create a custom save class. And if I do that, we'll say save game, and oops, save global. Make sure I put those in the right spot. Yeah. And here, under the save game and the save global, you can set up all your individual variables that you want to use for this specific save, and that's totally fine. However, there is a system already set in place for loading and saving different variables. You can also check right here, set whatever those, and in here you can set what a lot of those default variables are. Things like your global vars for bools, ints, data assets, stuff like that. Entities, which we'll go into in another tutorial. And we also scroll down here, you'll notice, sorry, saves can also have things like save tags. And if you scroll way down here, you'll notice some things like playtime, which, yeah, we do automatically record your playtime, as well as save GUID and save seed. And these are cool because these are generated every time you start a new save game automatically, and these sort of give a specific identifier to that game session. And that allows you to do all sorts of fun things like causing randomness for that specific playthrough, but having it be consistent throughout the playthrough. Now, say you want an easy way to save and load variables in your game. Well, that's where global variables come in. So if you look up global var, you have a lot of different options here for setting and getting the values of global variables. So for now, we'll do, why don't we do integer? We're going to set and get our global integer values. Oops, that's a float. Global int get. Here we go. Now, first thing you want to notice, though, is that they're right now set to world. So if you click on this, you actually have a few different areas you can choose where to write this global variable to. The world, the game instance, the game save, or the global save. In this case, we want to use the save game. So we will do that. Let's go into our tick, so we can check this. Print. We're going to print our global variable. We'll call it tesint, and tesint there as well. Grab that off. We'll say when I hit 0, we're going to set it to 77. All right, it prints out there. I'll make it a shorter print as well. Now if I hit play, you'll see we are printing out 0 because that's the current value. If I hit 0 and change it, that's our save value, 77. Let's say I go over here instead and do the save game here. Now let's restart, load our game, and there, 77, because that value is saved. And you can actually inspect what your current save state and save values are by using something called the Omega Control Panel. Now, this is a little bit more advanced, but it's fine to go over here. You'll find this in the actual OGF plugin. If I just look up Control Panel, this is an editor utility widget right here. Just do run editor utility widget, and I've got this set up right here. Buttons might be changed, but you have some of these are still in progress, but the main two you want to worry about are Debug Profiler, which we'll go over later, and the Save Inspector in this case. So if I resume this, you can actually, you can see the current status of the, and you can see the time counting up there, of both the global save and the game save, and what my current values for this are. So if I go ahead and reload that, and I'll do this here and do get again, there's a value, 77. And so you can also edit these values from here directly, which is mainly for debugging and editor purposes. All right, anything else I want to go over with save? Yes, I said there's custom save. You also have save entities, which I won't go super into depth with, but I'll just kind of cover them quickly. Save entities allow you to save data onto specific identifiers, such as a data asset, a name, or a GUID. So if I look up here and do entity set tags, we'll say, you can choose again where they're saved to. This one's default saved to the save game, but you can do the others as well. And then entity get tags. And there's lots of other entity functions you can do, but we'll just cover these. So we're going to get our tags, and we're going to set the tags are. Now, you'll need to do them from entity ID. And that, actually, you can just do things like, let's say, you can show the three things that can be converted to an entity ID. So a name, a GUID, and a data asset. So tar, and then we can set a tag to that, and then get that tag. And it'll work the same way, you know, like global variables, just identified to that. So if you want to save data to like a specific character or something, or a level or something, you can just use this method. Lastly, we actually allow you to save to some unconventional places. So if I go ahead and actually go into game mode, I don't think I have a pause menu. I'm going to switch over my game mode to the demo, open it up, and go into save. And you'll actually see up here, you have two places, both the user folder and the game folder. Now for editor, we actually have these set so it automatically uses both of them as the same thing. Let me go ahead and turn that off and restart. But you actually have user folder and game folder. Now the user folder lets you save save directly to the user data, which is normally where save files in a packaged game go. But you can also save to the game folder. And this is just this specific implementation of it, but it's the same way where you can save to specific locations. Let me go ahead and check that back. So how do you do that? Well, if we just look up save, you have tons of different save functions here. But the main ones you want to worry about are, I think it's async save and load. Not these ones. You want these ones because these are from Omega Game Framework. Now once again, it's got that bug where it's duplicating all functionality, so ignore that. Just use the top one. But you can load all Omega games in path. You can load a file from a specific path or async save to a specific path. And again, these are async, so it'll actually gives you a start and end state for the saving. This will work the same way. We can, if we want to save, we can just say get our, get save. We can get our current active save game and save it out here, and we can put in any file path. So this will save to whatever file path anywhere on your computer that you want. Allowing you to do all sorts of crazy things. You do have some helpers for this. If I do directory, you can actually get a directory like user data or the game folder. These are default directories as well. I believe you can also do, you can make that path from a slot or from a name. But this gives you a ton of extra ways you can save and load data if you want to do some really creative things. Or maybe just you want to store data in a more local spot. I think that's everything I want to cover. I covered the seeds, I covered entities, I covered global variables. Let me think. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to cover. And that, all in all, is the basics of saving and loading a game in Omega Game Framework. Woo! All right. Curious who's still around. I appreciate it. Let me check my list for what I still got to do. Global events, that'll be next. That'll be easiest. Then combatants. Okay. Combatants will probably need its own stream. I don't know. Give me a break, and I'm going to go take a break for a little bit, and then I'll decide what I want to do. I will at least get through. Nah, you know what? Is it the last thing? I'll just do global events now, because that's super quick, and then I will take my break. Even though they do kind of work the exact same as the previous tutorial, but consistency. All right. Global events. That's what we're covering now. Hello, welcome back to the tutorial series for Omega Game Framework, the best gameplay framework for Unreal Engine. Right now, today, we're going to be going over global events. Global events are, as they sound, they're an event that you fire and is received globally across your game. They're very simple. There's two types of them, and we'll go over them now. Get rid of all that. So there's two types. So like I said, two types of So there are two types of global events: tagged global events and named global events. So if I look up global event, we can do fire named and global event fire tagged. And right here, that'll be go. And these are the two main ones. Now, they can be fed in a context and a generic metadata struct, which is, again, all sorts of things in here. So there, you can just put in the name, like my event, or event dot whatever. Let me check something, though. Did 7 break? It did not. Okay, good. And feed in, whatever context and metadata you want. Now, to receive global events, you can do get game manager. No, sorry. You can do back up. Now, in order to receive global events, you can do get game instance subsystem. We'll get the Omega subsystem for the game instance and do assign on a tagged global event or just assign on global event. And that'll be whenever these are received. There's a couple other ways, though. You can do wait for global event. And this will enter this node and then wait until that event is received and then exit out. And then it will not run this node anymore. So that's a very easy way you could say event.drag. When I fire this event, I receive this event. In fact, let's go ahead and test it out. All right, I'm going to hyphen here. Whenever I hit hyphen, let's get out of here and let's go into, let's say, the level blueprint. Do wait for global event tagged, event drag, string. I done been dragged. So now all I have to do is hit this here and it should receive it out there. Odd. Why isn't it working? Do tag events not work? Uh-oh. I may have found a bug. I think. Oh, no. I'm not using the exploration system. I'm using the demo one. Right. So now, if I hit play and do this, there you go. It's firing our event. Now, that's one method. But you can also... I just realized I found a bug in this. Oh, well. That's one method. You can also do this and do listen for global event, which is basically the same thing. Which is sort of like the same thing, only it's a quick delegate binding. Yeah, I think that's it. And that is how you use global events in Omega Game Framework. Okay. Woo! Yes, yes, Michelle, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to take each of these and cut them up into their own tutorials. And then those will, be uploaded as their own video, so they're easier to go through. It's easier for me to do them all in one batch, and I can also answer questions and stuff if anyone has them and get into some specific stuff. All right, I'm going to go on a short break, grab some lunch, cool my throat, and then we will go on to the big, meaty heart, beating heart of OGF, which is combatants. Combatants, abilities, attributes, and the like. So, be back in maybe 20 to 30 minutes or whenever I feel like it, but not longer than 30 minutes. I thought I unmuted. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, I said I'm going to go over actually the input system before I do combatant, and in fact, combatant component has a lot of aspects to it, so I may end up needing to do that one. We'll see. I'll do input, and then I'll see how far I get on combatant. But yeah, we're actually going to do the input system, the new input system first. You can hear me now, I assume. It looks like my mic is on. Once I get confirmation, I'll start again. Great. All right. Then, input system. That's what we're covering. Hello, welcome back to the tutorial series for Omega Game Framework, the best gameplay framework for Unreal Engine. Today we're going over the new input system added to OGF, and kind of the purpose of this is to provide sort of the maybe some of the flexibility of the enhanced input system, but the simplicity of sounds contradictory because it kind of is, but basically I'm trying to bring it back to some of the simplicity of the previous input system where you can just add an input globally and it works anywhere, rather than necessarily some of the extra functionality and complexity that comes with the enhanced input system. Now you can still use that system, of course, but this sort of provides a simpler base layer, especially if you're someone wanting to make just a really simple game. The way this input system work is via tags which will be activated with an access value, so somewhat similar to the original input system. Now, for example, I opened up my exploration system here, which, if you didn't understand gameplay systems, previous tutorial on that you can check out. But this is our main exploration system. And in here, in order to use inputs on an object, you'll want to add, you'll want to look up, actually I think I already added it here, but it's, it's this one here. It's input action. Let me actually pull up the actor to show you better. You'll want to do input. You'll do data interface input action, not standard input, not widget input, input action. That's what you want. That's already added to gameplay systems by default. And that'll give you 3 functions. Four because you can disable input, but 3 main functions, which is action begin. Hang on. Move that out of the way. Action begin, action end, and action tick. You get the action, which is a gameplay tag, and then you get the player controller triggering that action, as well as its access value. Now, how might you use this? Well, you'll set these up, your inputs up, from Omega settings. So you'll go into here, and you'll, under here, have a couple things: input action configs and persistent access keys. Input action configs is the main thing. This is where you configure what the actual input is. So you'll add it in here. And then you'll do input, and this is actually a bug right now. It's only supposed to be showing input, but there, if I just do input, there you can add in whatever your input is. And I have some built-in ones for you to use as sort of like your default labels, common things like attack, crouching, dodging, jumping, whatever. But you can, and then some stuff for widget as well. But you can add your own in, like input do thing, and then we'll add that in. Input do thing, and then we will say give it a value of t. T will do the thing, and we'll even get an access value. Now, if we go back to exploration, actually, let's do it on our character because that'll demonstrate it better. So let's go ahead and add that input interface in. And on begin, let's switch. Nice using it this way, at least nice for people like me who like it like this. It keeps all your inputs kind of bunched in one spot rather than scattered all over the place. So you can kind of quickly find what does what. Now we'll do input dot do thing, and we'll do a print string. We'll say purple, and plug in our access value. Now, if I do this and I hit T, it's printing out. There you go. But I actually want to show you something else. I believe it's printing out because if I go into input, if I go into player, yes. So I go in here in settings under player. You have input replicate to player pawn, which I have active. So the player pawn is automatically receiving input. But let's turn it off just to show you like how to set up input on any actor. So for a normal actor under normal circumstances, in fact, better idea actually. Why don't I just make a new actor and show you? A test input. So we'll open up that new actor. We'll give it the input. And we'll copy this over in input begin. All right, so it's same thing. So we have that mapped as T. If I hit it here and hit T, oops, sorry. I have to go back for a second. I have to remove that from the player. And let's drop that into the world. So now if I hit T, nothing happens. Well, we haven't told it that we want to allow input on this because it's a bit dangerous to just allow input on any object or any actor. So what you can do, let's go on begin play. And let's grab a player because we need to know which player can give it input. So we'll say player controller, our default one. Actually, we'll do Omega, no, not Omega. Yeah, we want the player controller. And then let's do input enable. No, that's not it. Input action should be somewhere here. Okay, set input action target active. Might clean up this name later, but that's right now how it works. There, you give a player, you give what object you want to allow input on, and set it to active. And so now, we should be, whenever a player controller receives that input action, we should be able to get it. So now, there you go. Whenever I hit T, it prints that value out. Now, first of all, a couple things I want to cover first is I want to show you this in imported gameplay settings. I showed you this in the first tutorial. So, but this is sort of a default configuration that comes with Omega. It's optional. You can add as many of these as you want. But in here, I actually have a bunch of inputs already set up. So for things like jump, pause, move, control, sprint, UI, confirm, cancel. Now, all these default inputs are set up with proper inputs, and that's up to them. So this is an easy way you can actually just add this on and already have access to tons of different inputs. And you can go in here and see what each one of these are. But so that's just to make your life easier whenever starting a new project. You don't have to re-add those every time. But the next thing you'll need to know about is persistent access keys. See, you have this right here called action tick. To save on performance, this does not actually run while your input is down, unless you have registered that you want that input to tick when it's down. So for example, if I print this out, sorry. So if I add tick here and print this out here instead, now it should print on tick. So I'll hold down T, and it is working. Wait a minute. Did I add it when I wasn't looking? Oh, whoa, hold on. I think I'm explaining this wrong. Right, because it's of an access key. Okay, let me go back. Hang on. Retry. Retry that last thing. I explained this wrong. So tick does work, but there's something else to it. So we'll go over here and say, I know we'll do this, and that'll show me that I need to retry in the editor. All right. Now this works for normal analog inputs, but it doesn't automatically work for access inputs because access inputs require a constant checking of what their value is, and that can stack up on performance if you're using it for every key. So things like getting the mouse 2D access or the gamepad thumbstick access, in order for that to work, you'll actually need to go into here, input access keys, and register it here. So to use an example, let's actually remove this for the moment and change this to be mouse 2D axis. Then I believe if we go in to input action tick, and attach it here. This should tick along with our mouse movement now, because whenever the XY value of our mouse changes. But it's not. It's not doing anything. It's not doing anything because this is an axis-based one and it checks every frame. For performance reasons, we want to make sure we actually tell it, hey, we want to use this to check every frame, instead of just letting any input use the tick. So we'll do that. We'll do mouse axis 2D. If I hit play now, there you go. And now you have access to the mouse axis. And that same thing, if I go back and add the default settings, config settings, you'll see is actually already set up. We have it for mouse 2D as well as for both the thumbsticks. And that is the basics of the input system in OGF. Okay, that's input. I'm actually going to go get a cup of ice to put this Coke in. And then we'll get started on combatants finally. I'll give you a little Coke pouring ASMR. Hopefully that doesn't hurt my mic. It doesn't look like it. Unfortunately, I think it's still the corn syrup one, not the good cane sugar one, but oh well. Ah! It'll work for me. Give me the energy I need. How are we doing so far? Am I going too fast? That's actually something I do want to know. I'm trying not to, but I caught myself on input. It's like, I think I'm going too fast. I think this might be... I don't understand this is a stream. In the cut-up versions, you'll be able to rewatch, but even then... And so the caffeine actually in this might not help me for that. But I will try to take it slower if I'm going a bit fast. Combatants. Give myself just a minute, and then we will start on combatants. Cold Coke. Yeah. I found a really... Sprecher's apparently does like a 40-calorie root beer, which is like 9 grams of sugar or something. It's amazing. It's amazing because it's like... It's still got sugar. It's sweet, but it's so much less sugar. It's great. I need to get some more. All right. Wait. I got to make sure everything is prepped. I think I will cover combatants, attributes, and abilities, and then see how I feel. I might stop after that, because that's kind of like the 3 cornerstones. There's more to cover with combatants, but those are kind of a... And then when we get to abilities, you'll see why covering input was important to do first. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of this. We don't need that. Excuse me. I'm dealing with allergies. It stinks. I'm dealing with allergies often, it seems. Excuse me. All right. I think we're ready. Combatants. Let's go. Hello, welcome back to the tutorial series for Omega Game Framework, the best gameplay framework for Unreal Engine. Today, we're covering one of the things that make it one of the best frameworks for Unreal Engine, the combatant component. The combatant component is kind of the beating heart of most of your gameplay in Omega Game Framework, because it gives you access, it gives an actor, namely, typically a player-controlled or AI-controlled actor, access to so many useful things that are basically used across any type of game. Attributes, abilities, factions, inventory, equipment, XP leveling, and even a pretty simple utility AI system as well. And it's packed pretty simply all into one nice actor. We're going to start going over that actor right now, because it's a chunky boy, but considering how much it does, it's actually pretty refined at this point, I would say. So, to use the combatant components, we're going to create a new actor. I have typically a character is probably what you're going to use, but I have the character class that I made right here. It's just a blank character class. This is the one I'm using for testing purposes. Let's go to add and look up combatant right here, the combatant component. Now let's click on this. When you scroll down, you'll see lots of different things. And some things you don't need to worry about because they can be cleaned up, but these are a lot of its preset values. So if you saw it at the top here, you can have gameplay tags on this. You can set a faction, which I have some default factions for player, neutral, enemy, destructible, and ally. I can go over briefly how factions work. We're going to assign this to the player because this will be a player faction. But if we open the faction tag, you can give a name, an icon, color. You can give them a tag, and then you can assign hostility or faction affinities to other tags. So this is the player faction, which means he is friendly towards a player, hostile towards an enemy or destructible, and friendly towards another ally. And you have 3 states. You can be neutral, friendly, or hostile. These are just generic enum states. What you do with these states is totally up to you. But anyway, yeah, so we're going to set him as a player. Then we have abilities, which we'll go over in a second. You can also set a combatant data asset as kind of a source to get source data for this combatant. That's more advanced. We won't go over that. A property bag, which doesn't do a lot right now, so we'll ignore that. You have some flags, which I won't go over now because they actually still need a bit of work. But next thing, attributes. Everyone's favorite attributes. Attributes are things like HP and MP, strength, defense. We'll go over those more in the attribute tutorial. We're just covering the combatant generally right now. Yeah, you'll see these here. In order to use them, you'll need to set up an attribute set, which shows what your attributes are, how they're modified. You have a baseline level for the combatant. You can also override what its max attributes are. You can also decide whether you want to be able to damage attributes right now. By default, you can. Attribute value categories, levels, complex stuff. Combatant data. Now, this is useful because this is actually an easy way you can save data to and from the save game. I showed you in the save tutorial, which you should check out if you haven't already, what are called entities. So if I go ahead and do entity, say get entity from WID, for example, this allows you to save data to and from the save game based on a specific entity. Well, a combatant, you can assign an entity ID to it and then tell it you want it to save to the save game. Right now, the combatant can only save to the save game or store it locally. So, for example, if I open up this, I have all the entity data for the combatant, and this is locally stored. Things like what its current attribute values are, what its inventory and skills are, some tags for it. If I use entity ID, though, you'll see this becomes disabled because we're now no longer writing to this. We're instead writing to its entity ID in the save game. And from there, you can choose, you can assign it a data asset, or you can choose to use a name or a GUID instead. For simplicity, and actually, if I go to this, set ID, you can just go ahead and set whatever its ID is here as well. So, like, say, this is in fact, actually, yeah, this is a good way of doing it. This is the player character, and we want to save the player character's information to the save game. I would just do something like, we'll go here, and we'll say player. Now, a better option, especially if you want to have any sort of multiplayer, would be you want to write it based on the player's index, but this is a way you can do it. And so in this case, data will be loaded and gotten and written from the save game directly. And that's super easy, where you don't need to do any cross-validation. It just writes right to the save game whenever you do things like damage attributes, add skills, any of that stuff. Modifiers, these actually are toggles that allow you what sort of modifications you can make, which I think which relies on the combatant interface, which I'll go over, I guess, after I'm done with this. Disabling abilities, disabling effects. I think that some of that stuff needs to be cleaned up. But then combatant AI. This is another cool feature. Combatants, when we get into using abilities, which will be in not the next tutorial, that'll be attributes, but then abilities, which work like gameplay abilities. You can assign them through here, create and assign them through here. Combatant AI is essentially a simple utility AI system for allowing this pawn, this actor, automatically decide what abilities to use on a timer. So it's a very simple AI system, and honestly, that's actually what most games need. In the tutorials or in the templates I already have out for the Boomer Shooter and for the 3D platformer, this is actually the AI system I use rather than state trees or blackboards, because it's much simpler and it uses the same system we already use. We'll go over that after the abilities. Give me a second. Now, important thing when using combatants is there's often times where you want to add modifiers to your different stats and attributes and elements of your combatant, such as adding on equipment. Well, then you want to be able to modify what its attributes are. Or perhaps, there's just some system that you have active that can modify how damage works for the specific game. Well, in order to do that, what you'll need to do is just decide, let's take this test input. No, let's make a new one. We'll call it... No. We'll say test com mod. So a test combatant modifier. Let's open up this actor. And let's give it an interface called combatant data interface combatant. This one, not this one, not this one, data interface _ combatant. This is the combatant modifier interface. And there you see the functions that allow you to tap into whatever with the different functionality of this. I'll go into these more when I cover each thing. But let's say for right now, let's get skills. And we will say make an array and add this to our skills. We'll grab out this and we'll say get all skills. This is not something to normally run on tick. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. Oops, nope. We'll just say get a copy, print string, and that'll print how many scalars we have. We'll do kind of a green color for it now. So if I go ahead and hit play on this, oops, hang on. Oh, sorry, it's getting the first, not the number, it's getting the first instance. And because I have no skill, see, it's not printing anything out. So for the modifiers, all I have to do is get the modifier, which in this case we're going to use a soft reference to the actor. Oh, drop it in, of course. We'll reference the resolve. Then you'll want to get a combatant and say set source master. This name might be changed because this is actually a relic of the old version. But basically you want to set a source, a modifier source. It can be any object at all as long as it has that interface. So you just plug that right in, hit active, and then on begin play we'll add it. And there, you'll see that skill we gave, it's showing that it's available now. And that is the most basic information regarding the combatant components. But we're going to, after this, in the next video, start going over the more specific features of the combatant, because that's where it gets really interesting. So attributes are up next. We'll talk to you then. So I moved the mic out of the way quickly. Okay. Ah, Mr. Squarepeg. Hello. Thank you. We're just starting to go over tutorialization on combatants and combatant components and attributes and abilities. And I might stop after that, or I may go on depending on how I feel. But I'm actually going on quite a bit longer than I meant to. But, yeah. So that's what we're working on right now. I'm curious if has anyone been able to download the... what was I going to say? The plugin so far, and see if everything works fine. It should, if you're using 5.5.5.7. Let's clean all this up. And abilities. Sorry, my throat's really starting to hit something. So we will probably need to stop after abilities. I'll do attributes and abilities, and then I think I'll wrap up. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I know I've been slow, but hopefully things will be a little clearer. Oh, right. I'll say this, and maybe I'll show this after. I do have some new documentation I'm working on that's included, I believe, in the source code. I don't remember if it's in the downloaded version. It is basically all done by Claude. I had Claude go through and generate documentation based on the layout, so it may not be super refined. But I also have been doing better commenting on a lot of the functions and systems as well. And as you may have been seeing in this stream, I am adding a lot of emojis. If you just type in like Omega in the Blueprint search, you'll see a lot of stuff with like an emoji and name and then a dash. That's usually an Omega function, and it shows kind of what system it's relevant for. So that's an easy way to kind of look through. There's a lot of systems in here, a lot of functions and stuff. And then also there's the templates, which are kind of to help understand the mechanics and the functionality of it as well. Because I'm going over a lot of the basic systems and stuff here, but there is so much that is there, and it's hard to go over all of it. And kind of the thing is, I've been trying to clean up a lot of it and simplify a lot of it because it got overly complicated. And I've done a great job with most of it, but there's still some stuff I have to refine. But it should be safe to use now, which is why I did the 2.0 release. So, yeah, I understand that's kind of the biggest barrier for a number of people is just understanding exactly how to use OGF. So I'm hoping I can this will cover all of the basic things. I would say the main things I have yet to go over that for like the core systems and core like features that kind of everyone will want to know about are so we have the combatant stuff, which are combatants, attributes, abilities, then effects, gameplay effects. 1 second, Squarepeg. Equipment, inventory, leveling, HUDs, menus, data widgets and lists, zones, tag targeting, interactions, tag events, and dynamic cameras and quests. And I believe... Wait, do I have flow? Oh, and flow assets I will probably go over as well. And that will be like all of, I think, most of the main core features. And beyond that, it's a lot of specific actors and components and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot here. And hopefully I'll do one more stream after this, and that'll cover all the main things in terms of tutorials that you need to know about. So, Squarepeg, I am working on uploading it to Fab right now. I wanted to have it done by today, but their approval process... Okay, well, it's no point really complaining about it other than just saying it's taken longer, because the way the approval process works is that they try to compile your plugin. There's an error, they send it back to you to fix. I have done that, but the problem is the compilation doesn't show every error. It just crashes after, or well, it stops after it shows an error that prevents it from proceeding. So what's been happening is I had it ready last week, and then I sent it for approval, and they've been consistently sending me back an error. I'll fix it, send it back. They find a new error and send it back. So yeah, it's taking a really... I think I have found a way to perhaps replicate their build process in order to fix that myself before sending it off again. But that's why it's taking so long to release it on Fab. So I released it publicly there. I am going to release the 3... I already have one template released. I posted it in the GitHub. I'll probably do another video for it. But I have the basic template released. I will shortly be releasing the other 3 templates on Itch.io. So that's where I'm going to be releasing them first. Itch.io, same way. Basic template is free. The other 3 are $20 each. And then once Fab is ready, I will release them on there as well. And by the way, these do not, just to clarify, these don't work like normal Unreal templates exactly where you download them from the launcher. These are zip files that you will download, and they contain the template project in it. I like the flexibility that gives me. I can do a little bit more with them. I don't have to stick so strictly by Unreal's sort of some of their standards for template projects, because I don't like all their standards, and they allow you to make them proper templates where you can put them in your project as templates and create the new ones like that. So, all right, attributes. 1 second. You will also, I suppose, get a sneak peek. Oh, am I broken? No, I'm good. You'll also get a sneak peek of some HUD functionality, but I won't cover that today. It's just going to be, I'm going to be doing it for demonstration purposes. Pardon me. All right, we're doing attributes now. Hello and welcome back to the tutorial series for Omega Game Framework, the best gameplay framework for Unreal Engine. Today we're going to be talking about attributes. Now, attributes are kind of anything that can be stored on a combatant to be a metric value that's either static, a value that's either static or metric. And important, like I said, let me start over. That was a bit clunky in the explanation. All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the tutorial series for Omega Game Framework, the best gameplay framework for Unreal Engine. Today, we're going to be going over attributes. Now, this is a subcategory of the combatant component, so if you have not watched the video on the combatant component already, do that first, and then you can come right into this. Attributes are kind of any value that goes on like your character or whatever that has that kind of a scaling state. So this can be anything like, this is typically things like your health, your mana, stamina, or it can be things like your strength, dexterity, defense, any of those sorts of things. And they typically have there are two types of them, metric and static. A static attribute would be like strength, defense, speed, dexterity. These have a set value, and that can be modified and scaled, but basically they have a set value that they are always at. Where metric attributes are like health and mana and stamina can actually be damaged. So they will have, say, well, let's go and demonstrate. Let's start by adding some attributes, why don't we? We're going to create a new folder called data. Let's add a folder called attributes. Now, if you open up data assets, go into here. First, you'll want to make an attribute set. So we'll do AT set default. And let's make 2 attributes. ATT health and ATT, we'll say power. We'll use power probably in the next time. So let's open up this first. So this is the attribute set. We want to add on our 2 attributes, health and power. These will show what attributes we're using here. And you can also override values of them for this specific set. So maybe perhaps an enemy and a player will use the same attributes, but they have a different set, and that modifies values related to those attributes. For right now, you can just modify their override max, or you can override their max value, but there may be more in the future. But for now, you have those, health and power. Now let's open each of those up. Health and power. So we're going to change that's the damage color. Let's go down to general first. Unreal kind of shuffles around where stuff are, so hopefully soon general will actually always be at the top. But let's go down to general. We'll give it a name, health. Color, we'll say green. And we'll make its damage color red. And for icon, do we have a heart? Give it a heart as its icon. All right, so that's basically setting up. Then we'll go up to value. So now the easiest way to do it is just set a max value. So in this case, we'll actually do 100. And next, we want to decide if this is either a static or metric attribute. So if in health's case, we're actually going to be a metric attribute, so we're going to leave this is value static. We're going to leave that off. What this means is we're going to be able to damage health and knock it all the way down to 0. By contrast, let's go to power. Do I have a fist icon? We're going to set its max value to, let's say, 10, and we are going to make it static. So this cannot be damaged, which means the base value will always be 10. Now, you can still modify it with things like, with attribute modifiers, but this is effectively, I guess, to demonstrate. Let me pull up the combatant and get attribute value. Attribute get value. And I can select whatever attribute I want here. Basically, the difference is that a metric attribute, so like say in health, will start out at, it'll be 100. So this will be 100, but you can damage this attribute and knock it down to this could be 75, anything from 100 to 0. But if we are power, because it's static, these two will always be the exact same value. So whatever it is based on this or modifiers, same value if it's static, but they can be changed if it's metric. So let's go back into this. For health, we want to start out with full health. So go to start value percentage and set that to 1. You can show it here. We'll be at 1. So we'll start at full health. Before we move on, something to show here is you have value category adjustments where you can actually select a tag, and this will scale what the actual max value of that attribute is depending on that. So for example, if I say enemy grunt and I do 50.5, that means if we have the combatant has this value category, then we're going to have half the maximum amount. So we'll have only 50 HP. That can be set if you go into attributes right here, combatant attributes. You can set that right here, and that'll determine that. Next up, rank value curves. Now, you can set combatant's rank. It's called level right now. It should probably be changed to rank, but it's the same thing. And you can set that here, and that'll actually determine how its attribute value scales. So, for example, we could say at rank 1, that's level 1. We are at 100. We're at 100, and then when we reach level 99, we're going to be at 1,000 HP. So that's there. You can attach an external curve as well. The only thing is you'll then want to make sure this is set to whatever the max is, because this will still clamp. This will still clamp to whatever this is. So this still will be your max. So you want to make sure this is higher than whatever you have at max here. And in that case, if I'm at level 1, then I'll only have 100 HP, as you'll see in a minute. So I have power and I have health here. We've made 2 attributes. Attribute scripts, don't worry about these right now. Basically, these will allow you to add some extra functionality to this specific attribute and how it works, but they're a work in progress, so don't worry about them right now. Anyway, we have our attributes set. Now let's go into here, combatant, and let's set that as our attribute set. Now, if you have a lot of different combatants, it may become a little clunky to set all of their attributes set. So what you can also do is you can go into settings, and if you go into, I believe it is, scroll down to, where's combatants? It got changed from where it was. Here we go. The combatant section. You can, where is it? Combatant conflict by class? That's by class. No, that's not it. Hang on a minute. Some stuff may have gotten shuffled around. There we go. Oh, it's just right there. Okay. So if we... Oh, these are the same category. Okay. I just need to change the names. So a little bug here. These need to be the same category. But anyway, you can actually set its default attribute set and default faction right here. So let's actually go ahead and put that there. And then if this is blank, it'll default to that other attribute set. But now we have our attribute set up. So why don't we get combatant and say get attribute value. In fact, let's actually remove, to show you, we'll clear that out, and we'll get rid of this, and then we'll get their HP value and print it out. So get value, current value of health, and print that out. Hit play. You'll see the value is at 0. Also, do I have movement enabled? I think I don't because I turned off exploration, which I don't want to do. Yeah. Sorry, let me fix this first. It's going to be a lot more editing than I wanted to do, but oh well. So now, if I go into combatant and set it to default, now our default health is 100. Shorter. And then I can also open up the set and override its max value to, I believe, let's say 50. And there, it's only 50. You can also manually override what its maximum value is by opening up combatant and doing override max attributes. And you can do it for one or for all of them. And you can do it int or float. Int just converts to float. But then, yeah, you can say, actually, I want it to be 200 to be his max health. And so you can modify it per combatant. Now, part of the idea of metric attributes like this are damaging them. So if I go up to here, let's go into exploration. We still have these set up. And let's say get player combatant. So whatever our player pawn is, this is the combatant from that pawn. And we'll say apply attribute damage, which, to be clear, we're grabbing the combatant component, so it's the same thing here. You just get that from the component. We'll do health, and we will say 25. So every time we hit hyphen, we'll do 25 damage. So now, you see 100 there, and I'm damaging it every time I hit that. Now, it minimum is 0. It cannot go below 0 or above its maximum value. So that's how you can damage an attribute. Now, how do you get this to display? Just to make it easier, let's go in here and let's make a new folder called HUDs. I will go over HUDs layers at a different time, but this is just for simplicity. HUD explore. Actually, let me think. Do I want to do this? No, I think you get the idea. I want to go over HUDs in their own time, so I'll leave those. I really need a better way of tracking when to start and stop with the editing on this. And you have all sorts of functions here for the attributes. So like, getting their values, getting their current level. What? Oh, right. That's set in here. I don't want to go over that yet because I don't know if I'm going to keep that. We have all sorts of functions as well in here, like getting their percentage value and things like that. Only other thing to really go over here is, after this, is attribute modifiers. Now, I talked about combatant modifiers and that interface in the combatant tutorial, so refer back to that. But in this case, first let me go and re-add it. But for our purposes, I want to show you how attribute modifiers in that work. So when you've added that interface in this case it's here, let's open it up. And let's go to modify attributes. And in here, you can set up a list of attribute modifications. So let's say I want to take our health. And now we have an incrementer and a multiplier. An incrementer will add directly onto the health. So let's just do 10. And we'll get, instead of their current value, their max value. Because I believe the current value will still stay the same until you either reverse damage, which is healing, or you reinitialize. Because that's the other thing you can do. You can do initialize attributes, and that will set the current value of every metric attribute to its max value. Or, well, no, sorry, not its max value. It'll set it to whatever its starting percentage value is. So we're going to, right now, check max value. So if I, just to show, I'll take this off. Our max value is 100. I plug it in. Now it's 110 because I incremented it. But you can also add a multiplier. And a multiplier, it's set at 0%. That doesn't mean we're multiplying it by 0. This is basically what this does is this is multiplied to your base value and then added on to your max value. So, for example, our health, our base value at the current level, we're at level 1, our base value is 100. So it'll be this times 100 applied back onto that. So if I do 0.5, that means we're adding 50% on, which is going to be 150. Plus this, we should get 160. There we go, 160. Or if we want to reduce it by 10%, then we do minus 0.1. And let me take off the incrementer as well to demonstrate it even better. And there, where our attribute value is only 90. And the last thing I think to cover with this is attribute damage. So I showed you in here, we can damage an attribute 25. But when we are using a combatant modifier, we can actually modify the amount of damage we receive at any time. And we can do that with a modified damage function right here. So let's open that up. Now, in order for this to work, you do also need to first go into the config, right here, combatant get config. Open the config up and make sure use damage modifier is turned on. Otherwise, it'll ignore this because that runs the risk of always negating all the damage. So for now, it's turned on, which means we need to set up the parameters for how this works. I'm going to say whenever this is active, we're going to cut the damage in half. So if it's only if it's damage to health. So let's say if attribute equals health. So if we're receiving health damage, and if the base damage is greater than 1. So that means if we are receiving any damage. Or sorry, greater than 0. So if we are receiving more than 0 health damage, we are going to multiply by 0.5, which is the same as dividing in half. We're going to cut it in half. And if not, important, because we don't want to always do 0 damage on the other, we want to reattach base damage to return output. Because otherwise, we'll always only receive 0 damage. So now if we're damaging health, it'll be cut down in half. So let's say if I, turn this off so we don't have the modifier, and I do damage. Oops, let's go back and make sure we're not printing the max amount anymore. We're printing the current amount. So whenever I hit this, there, 25 damage each time. Again, current value hooked up to print. Let's turn the modifier on. And now, see, we're cutting it down, so it takes twice as long to knock us down to 0 health. And that is the basics of adding and using attributes in Omega Game Framework. Wow. We're almost there. Abilities, and then I think that's it for today. Everything makes sense so far? I want to make sure I covered everything related to attributes, though. I'm pretty sure I did. Attribute set, compared value. Yeah, I think all the main stuff. There's some more advanced stuff, but it's not really, I don't have time to go over it. I want to keep these relatively simple. All right. Give me 1 minute to break, and then abilities. And that'll be shortly after 2 that'll finish up, so that'll be enough. I don't know when the next one of these will be, but hopefully not. Hopefully I'll do. I'd like to get through all the major features, so maybe I'll do one next Saturday if I can. Although I might be busy next Saturday. No, I think I should be free. Whew. My bitrate is apparently pretty high. It's alright. We're on the last one. Let's clear out all that stuff. All right, you know what? I think let's just get right into it. Minimize that. Pop that. All right, abilities. The last tutorial of the day for sure, because I am tired. Man, we'll do this. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the tutorial series for Omega Game Framework, the best gameplay framework for Unreal Engine. Today, we're going over abilities, a very key part of using this framework. This is, again, a subset of talking about the combatant component, so if you've not already seen the video on that, go watch that one first before coming here, and also best to watch the one on attributes as well. So abilities are basically any action you can execute from a player that has a state of being active and a state of being shut down. This could be things like jumping, sprinting, attacking, a hook shot, a wall climb. And the idea is you break these up into their own individual scripts to kind of keep their logic contained. And then you can also modularly decide what actors have what abilities or when the player has access to what abilities at what time. And it's a nice way of not creating a massive amount of spaghetti code when you want to add even more and more abilities to your characters. Keeps things nice and clean. So, to create a new ability, we're going to go ahead, go into our blueprints folder, and add abilities. And then look up ability, Omega ability, AB underscore. We're going to do a jump ability first. This will be the easiest one to test out. Now, abilities are actors. Actors attached to whatever actor owns your combatant, which means they give you access to components to use as well, which can be useful in many different cases, such as a simple attack that checks in a sphere to see if it hits anyone. We're going to start with the jump ability because it's super simple. Let's go to the event graph. It shows you some of the default functions. When the ability is activated, when it's finished, and a tick for while it's active. So for now, jump, we'll keep it simple. Let's do a delay tick. And instead of we could do, we get ability character. And this will try to get the character that this ability is owned by. We could get that, and we could do jump like normal. But I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do actually launch character, which is kind of similar. Don't worry too much about using this over jump. It's just for demonstration purposes, this works better. Z override, we're going to jump, what's going to say 700, give him a big jump. Then we're going to delay and do complete. Now, you can't reactivate an ability until it's finished completing. So what this will mean is we are going, whenever this hits, so we're going to launch the character, and then we're going to wait 0.2 seconds, complete it, and then we can jump again. Let's test it out. In order to be able to use this, we want to go into our combatant, and let's go to here, abilities granted, and select our ability. You can also just do set abilities granted and set whether we have this ability granted or not, but this is the easiest way. Now we also need to be able to actually activate it. So let's go into systems exploration. We'll get the player components. We'll do this for now, make jump space, and say activate ability. We don't want to use that one just yet. Activate ability. Jump. Alrighty. Now if I go into here, and I do this, there we go, and I'm jumping. But I have unlimited jumps. That's strange. Well, it's because I'm using launch character. But there's a way to circumvent that. So let's go into ability. And let's say, look up can activate. This checks in if we can actually activate this. Now let's get the move component. Where is it? The move component This will be from our running character. And we'll check, is falling. So if we're not... Oops. If we're not falling, then we're allowed to jump. Let's go back down to the bottom. So only as long as we're not already falling. So now I can hit it many times, but I can only jump when I'm grounded. Now, maybe you want to add a double jump. Well, let's say, let's create an integer. Our jumps. And we will say, this will increment the amount of jumps we do every time it's triggered. Now let's also get begin play, because this will begin play whenever it's granted. Get a running character. So whenever we land, we will reset our jump number to 0. There. And now, last thing. Once we have, I think, 2 jumps. I think if it's greater than 1 jump. Or sorry, and if it's less, if our jump number is less than or equal to 2, I believe it's 2 for a double jump. It may be 1. Then we should be able to jump twice. So, sorry, if we're not falling, or actually, we don't even need this now, do we? Let me drop that down. We'll just see, because it should, whenever we land, it resets our jumps. So we'll just see if jumps is less than that, then we can't jump anymore. So we have 3 jumps. Let's move that down to 2. Double jump. There we go. And then we can jump again once we land. Very simple ability. Now, we also have active tick. I'll just demonstrate this quickly, which only runs while the ability is active. So now only while the ability is active. So, basics of using an ability like this. Now let's go to other ways of activating this, though, because I showed you can activate it like this, and that's fine. Another way you can activate it is to activate ability, and this will give you outputs for when it's completed, canceled, or failed. So this is extra useful. Let's try that. Fin. And we will do jump. And also note, you can actually feed in a context object. So for example, if you have a generic ability, but then you want to feed in a data asset with some skill parameters that determine how the ability works. Like say you have an MMO, and this you write your generic ability for executing an action. And then you have a context object that determines things like what animation plays, what are the effects, what are our targets, things like that. You can send that through there. So now, let's just try this again. And if we do jump, there, FN when we finish. Very simple to use. But there's also an easier way, another way that a lot of you will probably find easier for handling input on an ability. Now, a couple tutorials ago, we went over input actions, and it's good for you to go over and watch that tutorial if you haven't already before going any further. But I explained to you how you can set up inputs through the settings here. And in this case, I'm actually going to use gameplay settings, the Omega config. I have settings set up here. So I have an input already set up called jump. And this will trigger whenever I do space or face bottom button on the gamepad. So if I take this off from exploration, I can go into the ability, go into class defaults, and then, where is it? Yeah, they changed the position of everything in 5.7, but under here, ability inputs, you'll see linked input action. Let's just go ahead and in this case select jump. So whenever that input is triggered, we will attempt to activate this ability if it's granted. You can also set up stop ability on action end. So this is useful for something like a sprint or a crouch, which you activate when you hold down the button and deactivates when you release. We don't need that for jump, so we're going to leave it off. So now I do jump. Hold on a second. It didn't work. And why didn't it work? Well, I haven't set up the combatant as being able to be used yet. So for input, if you remember from the input tutorial. So we'll say get player combatant. Oh wait, shut down. Because we all, since we're using, in this case, our exploration mode as our main game mode, we don't want you to be able to do action input or inputs on the abilities if we are not in this mode. So let's do finish shutdown. Let's get our combatant, and we'll say input active, get player. I'll make a player. So now we will allow input on the combatant as long as the system is active. When it's shut down, turn it off, and we cannot use this jump ability anymore until it's activated again. There we go. So now I can activate it just from hitting space, and if I had my gamepad, I could do bottom button as well since that's set up. Very useful. Now let's create another ability to demonstrate one more thing. Let's create a new ability, and we will call it Sprint. Let's grab all. Let's go to actually begin. We don't need to begin play just. No, yeah, we'll do the full thing. Begin play. Show you just the extent to which you can use this. Get move component max walk. Get our max walk speed and save it. Def speed, our default speed. And we will say when sprinting is activated, we're going to double our speed. And when it is finished, we're going to return to normal speed. Now I have sprint already set up as shift in the default config. So let's just go ahead and add sprint. And let's make sure to stop ability on input action end is turned on, so that when I release shift, we'll stop sprinting. In fact, to make this even more helpful, let's add a little something in here. Since this is an actor, we can add components. We'll add a post-processing component, and we'll set its weight, blend weight to 0. But we'll add a vignette around the screen, a really thick vignette. No, we'll just do one. So we'll also say set weight. Set weight. So this will help us identify that sprinting is actually working. So when we're active. And now, let's go into combatant, add that on as well. So now, hang on a second. Go back to here. Unbound. It is unbound. Maybe priority? I know what it is. No. Sorry. Abilities are hidden in game by default, so we got to turn that off. Now that's turned off. There we go. And now we have our sprint ability working. And we can jump and sprint at the same time. But what if you didn't want to jump and sprint at the same time? You only wanted one of them to be active. Maybe you can jump when you sprint, but you don't want to be able to sprint while you're jumping. Well, that's where you can use ability tags. So let's go in here. Very similar to game system tags. We're going to set this tag to make a new one called sprint. We'll give it the sprint tag. We'll give this one the jump tag. And you have some options here. So I will say whenever we jump, we won't cancel sprint, but we will block sprint from being active while we are jumping. So if I run now, jump. So sprinting is active while we're up, but when I jump in the air, I can't activate sprint until jumping is complete. Now, that's technically the best implementation just because jump actually does not end when I'm on the ground. It ends when after a point seconds, but you can still see it. I can't activate it immediately. So if I do this, it does deactivate it for a second. So that's the way you can block and deactivate abilities. So like for sprint, a better way of doing that would be like can't activate. And we will say move component. Move component. Falling. Where are you? So not bool. So now we can only sprint if we're on the ground. And when we when we jump into the air, we'll deactivate it. And there you go. 2 basic abilities and how to use them. And that is the basics of creating and using abilities in Omega Game Framework. And that is our final tutorial for the day. I am very tired. But that should give you... Oh, there's more to go over with abilities, actually. Or is there? There's cooldown, but that's self-explanatory. And there are ability utility, which I actually think I'm going to go over next time because that gets into AI. So, there we have it. That's the first 3-hour stream. Good night. That's our tutorial stream. First tutorial stream for Omega Game Framework Circuit 2.0. These will be edited into their individual videos and uploaded possibly on the Studio Syndicate YouTube account, not this one, just to keep things clean. But they will be uploaded shortly, hopefully in the next couple days. And more tutorials after that, as well as the game templates. So, I think that's about all I have for now. Thanks, guys, for coming out. I'm going to go take a break, take a rest, and then get back to work. So, I will talk to you all later. So long.